This is the Michael Brighton Show. Hi everyone, welcome back to the show. And today I am joined with Dr. Valerie Bennett, who is a big deal in the STEM field. So she has a PhD in mechanical engineering. She helps people get into the STEM field. So Val, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Michael. It's an honor and a pleasure. Can't wait to get into conversation.
So how did you get the PhD in mechanical engineering and then suddenly go into helping others get into the STEM field? It seems like there's something that happened that caused it. So how did you get involved?
Yes, that's a great question. Just getting into engineering is it really kind of stemmed from like my family and things I did with my mom and dad at home. And, working with my dad with cars. I'm the youngest of five. So it's like, okay, you're the one that's going to help dad. So I would help him with the cars. And I just got really interested in making things with my hands and seeing how things worked. And then my wonderful mom, she sewed. And, she taught me how to sew, her and my sister Cheryl. And, just seeing again how things are put together. And so all of that really inspired me to go into engineering because it's like, oh, you're good at math and science. So putting things together with your hands, that's mechanical engineering, just being inspired by that. And, moving forward through college, I had some great mentors, and one of them was Dr. Carolyn Williams. And she said, you know what, Val, you should get your PhD in engineering. I'm like, what's that? I didn't even really know what it meant myself. But she helped to lead and guide me into that process and what that meant. So earned my PhD at Georgia Tech. And your question specifically, and I'm saying all that to say, there was someone who guided me along the way. And when I was in engineering school, there were not many students that looked like me in that space. And I'm like, there are other great students out there. I really am drawn to do something to change these numbers. So that is one thing that inspired me to help others get into STEM. We need those diverse ideas. We need creativity. And especially as a female, it's like going into this male dominated field. It's like, where are the girls, right? Where are all the girls? And we have got to change this. And it means a lot for other students and other people to see you. And so that was one of the things that inspired me. So
I mean, the whole female, I guess, of it all, for want of a better
yes.
expression, it's something
Yeah.
that's becoming quite popular as a point in that it is a male-dominated area. And yet, as you say, there are many, many females that are amazing at this. So
Yeah.
where does the problem come from? Is it just an impression thing? You know, most engineers are guys or whatever the case is, and therefore we translate that into the entire industry when it might not actually be the case, or is there more going on? Like where does the problem come from?
Mm.
How do we address it?
Oh, wow. Man, how much time do you have to address that one question? I get so excited and empowered to talk about this. So Michael, I will say there are a couple of pathways that I like to think about as to like where are the girls, what happened. So like you said so eloquently, it's kind of more traditionally, the boys are the engineers, especially in the mechanical or in any area or the tech space. But I think it has a lot to do with um, teachers inspiring our students and not putting their own biases in. And I'm a teacher at heart, so I have to kind of check myself too with things I may say. That young, second or third grader, they're wanting to put together the Legos too, but no, you play with the other toys, that's for the boys. Just those small, subtle things tend to steer our girls away from engineering that they really love. And, I really feel like the tide is turning. We are getting more girls interested in STEM. We are having our teachers know how to make sure we have, a sense of equality and equity in our classrooms. And, just those words, right? There's power in those words that we say. Are we excited when our girls, do well in math? Are we excited when our girls do well at, coding and robotics? They are good and creative and excited about it too. So it's not just geared towards, a gender. So I think that's one thing we just really have to be conscious of as we are looking at inspiring and getting our girls more so into STEM.
Do you find that sometimes is it just preference though? And this is me playing devil's advocate a little, in that
Yeah.
there are girls, ladies that simply don't want to do it, and that is okay. Or is the door genuinely being shut for those that are building things when they're five and they're told to put that down and play with dolls instead, just as an example? Is that what
Yeah.
it's like? Are they actually being forced away from this, or is it simply preference?
Um, I really sense that, our girls are being forced away in subtle ways, right? And it goes to different messaging, let's say outside of the home and outside of school. So how many engineering shows you see with girls in it? Right? How many, engineering, girl YouTubers you see out there doing cool stuff, right?
Yeah.
So it's that messaging that, we have an opportunity to help change the tides. And so it's important that we look at, okay, society really isn't, really cool with me being an engineer. So maybe this other thing is what I should be doing. So there's a lot of messaging. And I remember, I don't know, show here called LA Law. And after that, I mean, law schools were flooded, with people wanting to go to law school. And so it was just this popularity, even medicine. So that's STEM. So I'm excited about that. But kind of these other areas tend not to be, as popular as some of those. So I just wanted to share that.
It's interesting, isn't it, how things become popularity contests, and I hate using that word, but
It's okay.
it's becoming like what's marketed better or what's
Yes.
promoted better,
Mhm.
and that's a difficult thing to accept when it impacts people at every level. So whether it's careers, parents, schools, institutions, it affects everything to the point where it becomes like a subconscious thing where we don't necessarily know that we're doing it.
Right.
And that can be very difficult and a very hard pill to swallow when you don't necessarily know that you're actually
Hmm.
contributing to the problem as well. Like you'd be sat there, you'd be like, oh
Yeah.
no, I can't possibly be doing that. And yet the next
Yeah.
couple of days, it's exactly what you're doing. It's a difficult thing to wrap your head around.
It is. You're right. It's just a matter of maybe thinking before we say it, and sometimes our own biases kind of feed into that subtle, for instance, if there's a science project that needs to be done, and unfortunately our kids wait to the last minute. Hey, can you I need this science project, and they're like, oh my God, but if it were for sports, I need these tennis shoes. I have to perform well tomorrow. All right, let's go. There's no kind of feedback given most of the time, about sports related things. So it's that messaging, those biases, that tend to be fed into, wow, am I being encouraged or discouraged, even though, it's with this kind of negative pensive messaging that can happen.
That's a good point, actually, because me myself, if it was a sport related thing, I'd be all over that. But if it was, I mean, I might get involved if they're making fireworks or making little
Right.
explosions, but if I don't know anything about cars, so
Yeah,
if
yeah.
my child comes on and goes, oh, we're building a car out of sticks or whatever, and I'm like, give that to your mum or whatever.
Mm,
So it's something that I guess it does come from the people that they're around. in a way.
Yes.
Like if your
Yeah.
parents are mechanics, you can bet they're all over the project.
Yeah.
And I think that almost keeps it in the family, I suppose you could say.
Yeah. Yeah.
And is there a way around that? Because I'm picturing, if you're a dentist and your child wants to build a rocket, you might get involved, but you might not be as good as, I
Yeah.
don't know, the aerospace engineer. So
Yeah.
it is it as simple as that, as in it's just transferring from one person to the other based on what they're good at, what their interests are. And do you think
Mhm.
there's anything that we can do about it? Because I think that's quite a complicated answer.
Yeah, yeah. Boy, I love your questions. I think we have to be aware that if it doesn't happen in the home, where do our kids spend, the majority of their time? And whether it be homeschool or whether it be in a more traditional school where they leave the home. So, what are they being exposed to in either place, right? So, are my classes do I have some type of STEM integration into what we're doing? Can we talk about, social science? But wow, let's look at these statistics, about, communities. If we're in foreign language, wow, how can I learn this foreign language, perhaps using coding to help me understand conjugations of verbs by making the robot go a certain place, depending on what's the right conjugation. So it's all in how we are thinking about how we can use STEM in creative ways to at least get them. Here's my thing, Michael. What are we exposing our children to? It's not a matter of talent, it's not a matter of smarts. But wow, if I would have been exposed to this, right, when I was 10 or when I was, even in high school, wow, what difference would that have made perhaps in my career choice? Or what am I understanding about how the world works together, even if it's not my major, but at least I have an understanding and appreciation for what is happening in these other spaces.
I wonder if there's anything that you can share that can actually help people nurture this in the younger generations. Obviously, we alluded to it before, but then let's say you've got someone that is obsessed with Lego or Meccano. I mean, I'm kind of
Mm-hmm.
aging myself now,
No, it's okay.
but you get to a level where you want to encourage something, but then you can't necessarily do that without encouraging them away from something else. You can only
Mm-hmm.
really do one thing at once, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
how do you encourage a child to do everything and then let them decide for themselves what they want to pursue? It almost like it funnels down slightly where they then start to make choices themselves, and
Yeah.
this is making parenting very difficult now. How do
Uh,
you do it? What's the best way? Is there a best way? Or if your child doesn't want to get involved with it, then you should also let them do something else
oh,
as well.
what man, I tell you, your questions are like super fantastic. I love that question. And it's helping me to think as well. It's like, when does this happen, right? But I think your question is phenomenal because it's like, well, man, I'm going to be exhausted as a parent. Can I wake up right? I have to do everything right,
Yeah.
right? Because I'm a parent as well, parent of two adult children. So I think back about, of course, I love STEM. My husband loves a totally different area. We're kind of like two ends of the spectrum. And so like my children aren't they didn't go into STEM areas, but they have an appreciation for it and understanding because to answer your question, it's like as parents, we have to be very careful about our biases. And what I mean by that is, really paying attention to our children, paying attention to how they learn, asking them questions. Well, what about that? We saw this happen, building off of their experiences. Wow, what do you think about this? Right. And as parents, guess what? We don't have to know everything, right? And if they asked us something, boy, we have this wonderful highway of the internet that can help us, or other people or friends we can reach out to. But it's like, you know what? That was a great question. What? Can we talk about that in a couple of days? Let me think about that. Let me go do some research. Or why don't we research it together, right? So, it takes the pressure off of us, but wow, we can become that kid again. We can, inquire. We can be, have a sense of wonder again, right? When was the last time we, we're just so excited about something, right? So bring your interest to your children, help them, ask those questions, and it's okay if we don't know them, we can explore them together. But I think, as long as we really kind of watch and observe our kids, like, my like one of my children loves to ask questions. I mean, like I just tell this story. We were in the car, very small, and we were running late to something, and she kept taking her shoes off. And of course, that adds more time to put the shoes back on when we get to where we're going, right, Michael? And I was like, why do you keep taking your shoes off? She was like, I don't need my shoes when I'm in the car. I'm like, I love it, fine. So fast forward, she's a extremely intelligent. She likes the area of law because it's like questioning why you're doing something.
Yeah.
So I tell that story, and she knows I love to tell the story, but it's again, and I would take her to all my STEM stuff, and she's brilliant in that as well. But, her area is more political science, being a lawyer. So that's her thing. But again, she has an appreciation and understanding for STEM, just being around all the stuff I do. So,
That must be very difficult as well when you're in the STEM area and then without encouraging them to get involved or not get involved, you just almost just kind of
yeah,
respond to the child's interests and then
yeah,
go with those, which I guess in some ways that just adds the element of, well, it's just what they want to do. And if they
yeah.
don't want to do it, then we have to be okay with that as well.
Absolutely, 100, 3000%. Absolutely, absolutely. And what would be the danger, right, in making your child go into something that you're doing, right? They, for a while, would pacify us as parents, to make us happy, right? But what is that doing to their spirit, to their soul, and feeding into what they've been placed here to do in terms of their purpose and their mission. So again, as parents, we really want we want the best for our children, right? And sometimes that may not be what our interests are. So we have to pay attention to listen to the soul of our children, if I may say that, so that we are making sure that they are going to be they're going to be their best selves.
And then you've got the question of, okay, well, how much progress are we actually going to make in these STEM fields if they are filled with people that don't really want to be there? They'd rather do something else.
Oh, wow. Loaded question again. Well, I think it's important that we pay attention to one another. And what do I mean by that? So if there is someone, in a STEM area who is not excited about it, really ask that friend. I mean, what is it that would make you really happy, and your spirit will flourish, and people will be made better by you doing something different, right? And so that will help that person start thinking. And and on the flip side of that, Michael, there are people who are not in STEM fields that want to be in STEM fields, right? And so it's like, are we paying attention to one another? Can we encourage those people, in either direction, right? To go back to school, to, pursue those interests. I was doing another interview, and the person was talking about, wow, I was interested in engineering a long time ago, but this happened and that happened, so I'm not in it anymore. And I was like, well, you want to go back and try it again, right? So, I hear those things where I'm really listening, right? Are we listening to one another? Can we help that person go down the pathway? And it's not saying the other pathway was wrong, but there's something very genuine about pursuing those areas that you had those interests in, right? When you were 5, when you were, that young child, building those blocks. So it's getting back to those things where we really have that passion.
It's a very interesting point when you mention possibly retraining or re-educating yourself in that area. And as you say, sometimes life gets in the way, I suppose,
Sure.
or life happens, or
Yeah.
I mean, I can't tell you how many times I wonder if kids or teenagers are being thrown into life too early and they have to pay
Mhm.
bills and this, that, and the other before they really get involved in what they want to get involved in.
Yeah.
And that can happen to the point where people are just happy with anything
Yeah.
and something, whether
Mm.
it's just to pay their bills, whether it's just to maintain a lifestyle, or whether they're passionate about it. It's almost luck if
Mm.
you're doing the thing that you really want to do at the time when you need the stars to align, if you get what I'm coming from. And to be able to
Absolutely.
do that at the right moment, at the right time, and then do the courses or get the education that you need early enough so that you're ready to take on the opportunity when it comes along. It's almost like unless you're getting involved reasonably early, you're going to have to eventually re-educate and then shift towards the STEM fields if you're unable to do so at the right time, which then encourages people to get involved in it, doesn't it? This whole idea of, okay, well, you were passionate about it. Maybe it's time to relight that fire and rediscover that, which then involves, you're covering yourself, maintaining a lifestyle, and then in your spare time, you're then doing the extra learning that you need.
Fantastic point. And you are so right about it because, life can happen, life does happen. And with all of the different ways that we can like retrain, like you said, and re-educate ourselves, um, because it used to be, okay, you go to, elementary, middle, high school, go to college, get a job, that's it, work for 50 years, retire, you're done, right? But that is no longer the methodology now, right? There are so many ways that we can retool ourselves. Excuse me, online classes, online schools, going in, if you want like the in-person version of that, certainly, enroll, take that class, night classes, right? But it all will help to again just spark that interest again, and then you are trained now to have the skills to go into those fields, right? So there's several different options and I love it.
What are some of the main benefits of the STEM field then? So if you want to get involved, why should they?
One of the reasons, perhaps I'll give you 3 or 4, right? But one of the reasons is that you will always be employed, whether you employ yourself or work for others, because STEM jobs are always in high demand. I know here, there are just in the cybersecurity area, there are like over 300,000 plus jobs that go unfilled each year because we can't find the people to fill those jobs, right? So that's number one. And with technology always changing, we're pushing the boundaries, we're being creative, we're thinking about things and inventing and creating. So it's always a field, Michael, that always needs very smart, very creative, very daring and bold people to come in with bold ideas, right? Who would have thought, right? We talk about artificial intelligence, we talk about, these electric cars, right? Those were concepts that were thought of decades before, like in the 70s, right? But it took, again, incremental changes, incremental thinking, incremental advances in technology to bring them to fruition. So maybe, there are these ideas that, just need some more life, some more creativity to them. So that's number one. Technology, STEM, jobs will always be here, right? Number two, I kind of alluded to it in my description, is that it gives you an opportunity. Again, we don't think about STEM people as being creative, but we come up with these ideas and we're able to explore them. We're able to hash them out. And so it's a way of, again, bringing that boldness, bringing those things to what you're doing. And organizations, industry, they need that. They need that innovation. And number three, those STEM jobs tend to be the highest paid across all sectors. And because, industries know it's going to take a lot of hard thinking, right? I'm not going to stray away from that. It's going to take some hard thinking. You're going to, it's not going to always work the first time. We have to use that engineering design process. It's just built into what needs to happen. And, these inventions that come across our desks, it didn't work the first time, right? So it's going to take that, tenacity, that grit, just to hang in there, but to see it to the end. And so with that being said, that training, so companies are going to pay you because you have been trained. You are able to, stick it out. You are able to see it through. So I'll just stop at those three reasons. But tech, STEM will be around because we need people to do the hard thinking, be creative, think differently about problems.
I reckon that the ability to solve those problems, I think that's quite an important job as well, or career or lifestyle that you've chosen, hopefully, to lead. It's like the bigger the problem, the better or bigger or more influential the solution.
Yes, yes. You're so right about that, Michael. There are so many tough problems that are still left to be solved. I mean, we have, it was just Earth Day this week. And, there are so many problems we think about sustainability. How do we deal with the plastic problem? It was invented to solve one problem, but inevitably it ended up creating another. So now it's like, okay, what do we do now, right? Can we create biodegradable plastics, right? And do those words even go together? So there are many people thinking about this problem. If we think about, going to the grocery store, right? Are we going to bring our own bag with us? Are we going to, you know, pay the extra 5 cents, for a plastic bag, So these simple but hard problems that leads to a lot of creativity. What can we do? And there's some great new technologies that are out there. I remember there's like this machine that can be bought that will decompose anything that you put into it, including plastic, and it'll change it so then you can use it for composting. So there are just great things, hard problems that people are looking into that, again, will be a bigger reward once we kind of scale these solutions up.
That's an interesting point, actually. When if you're in the industry or an industry that's under STEM, how long would you say it takes for something to be created or built and then used in a useful way? Like you mentioned that machine that can essentially biodegrade or compost or decompose anything. How long would you say that took to, I guess you would say, perfect or build so that it could be used properly? What's the timeline like for these things?
Mm, wow. I would say each invention has its own kind of timeline. And so you kind of alluded to it earlier, where it depends on the desperateness of the society, if I if I can say it like that. It's like we need a solution now. So whoever has some good ideas out there, right? So we think about, COVID, coming up with a vaccine for that. So the timeline for the societal need really sped up. Okay, we got to figure this out. So it really sped up the timeline versus, oh, just a few people. Oh, it'll be nice, if we kind of helped a few people, that's going to delay that timeline for when a solution is, needed for in the society. And so it's kind of the same thing for like, the polio vaccine and some other, you know, um, other diseases. So when it's on the health side, Michael, I would say it speeds up that timeline. But things that, well, we know that are problems, but we can get to it. I'm still living my life, right? Those tend to increase that timeline, and for that and those types of solutions, it can often take between maybe 10 and 20 years before it's like, oh yeah, that was really fantastic. So it's a difference in terms of how it impacts my daily life.
How do you think that plays out with people that are wanting to get involved? Like, let's say
Yeah.
you get involved and you're 20 and you're
Mhm.
spending your time trying to solve a particular problem that may or may not be realized until you're, I guess, halfway at the very least through your career. It seems a bit
Like I
anticlimactic,
care.
for want of a better expression. You're like, okay, I'm getting into this thing, I'm gonna solve, I don't know, climate change or plastic bags or reusable energy or just pick a random thing that everyone seems to be obsessed with. And I think, okay, well, it could take 20 years before it's usable. And then I interview scientists that say, well, usually discoveries take about 50 years before they're used. We have to keep trying to solve these things because one day something will happen. It makes me think,
Mm-hmm.
well, your discoveries might not even get realized until you're retired or until you've finished your duty, I guess you could say.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I think one important thing to think about as, as our society has really changed is that we can now connect with other pockets of genius, and they're all over the world now. And so we can find those people, those groups, who are working on the same problem. So now it becomes leveraging the collaboration for the problems we're trying to solve. And that I think will move the ball forward faster. Because you mentioned 50 years, and I'm saying maybe 20 years. But now some of those big problems can be really solved because we are now able to connect via technology, right? Via Zoom and, collaboration spaces where we can share those ideas, where we can then maximize everyone's genius, and we can really move those problems forward faster than we could in the past. So it doesn't, I don't know, I just know that it does take time to solve those problems. And, organizations, funders, venture capitalists, they're helping to kind of move those things because they realize, right? Like we've both been saying, that it's going to take time. But what about there are several accelerator groups because they realize, hey, you all have the ideas, we want to fund it. So when we have a marriage between those two, we can move it forward faster. So there are definitely people and organizations who want to do that and recognize that.
That actually made me think of AI as well. You mentioned technology being able to speed things up. Has AI played a part in this? You've got everything from educating people on these technology industries and learning the appropriate things, all the way to actually using AI to solve the problems that it's there to solve. Is AI being used yet?
Yes, yes. AI is definitely being used, and this is something I love to talk about because I think more than anything else, it helps us to think about other possible solutions. It's not the end all be all because we as humans have to build those models, right? And AI, I still test AI, right? I'm like, that's not a real solution, right? If you were to AI yourself, hey, AI, can you tell me about Michael McDonald? You're going to get some. not true things, right? You can AI yourself and see what comes up, right? But it at least gives you, wow, there were perhaps solutions out there, but I always double check it with literature reviews, and I make sure that, okay, what you're saying matches up with, some things that, is out there, done by researchers. So I see it as a way to help provide a way to bringing previous ideas and previous things that may have been done that you may have missed. So it's like, oh yeah, that was a theory that I didn't think about, or there was these are all the, top 5 or 10 or whatever ways that this has been done. I missed some of those. So it's a way to help to fill the gaps and to give you a way to spark new ideas. But AI is still, again, created by us as humans, and it can give false negatives. So it gives us a place to start, but it doesn't finish the problem.
In that case, what kind of technology advancements have been useful? So, from educating to the creation of the solutions, what technology is currently being utilized, and paints a bit of a picture for those that are thinking, okay, if I'm using technology in this field, then it's actually better. Because I imagine in some cases you might be spending most of your time correcting the AI in a lot of ways. So what's actually helpful or useful?
Um, I think one of the things, and we'll talk about AI, as you mentioned, is that we have to build better models because it's based on neural networks and how models are put together by getting different connections and information. So building better models means more data and a better way to manage that data and how it's used and how it should be, how we need to protect personal information, right, from being on those. So building better models means using more diverse data sets. So if it's a data set on, females, right? The data set on males, data set on all types of people and all types of background. If we're using better models to reflect who is actually in society, then that will help us to get better things out of AI. So I think another part of your question, I know in the medical field, I'm always fascinated by how we're able to use robotics, how we're able to use a lot of these advancements that may not apply initially, like robotics in medicine, robotics in surgery. Well, someone had to think about that and be creative to say, wow, we can probably do this better by using technology. So maybe marrying the two different areas will really push the boundaries of what we thought was or was not possible before. So again, that creativity, that way of thinking about things differently to bring out more advancements. So hopefully I answer your question, but just wanted to share, again, bringing different things together to help to solve a problem.
It's almost like that it's the humanness of STEM that actually makes it more creative or even more powerful. Because sometimes it's humans that are able to think differently and think outside of the current norms, I suppose you could say, or the current box that's been created. Do you think that humans will always be involved? Or do you think that it's simply early doors for technology and eventually we'll just be overseeing the technology or just facilitating or gently nudging rather than doing all the creative work?
Well, Michael, I would say it's that human element that makes technology what it is, right? Um, we have to think that, well, humans were inspired. We are inspired to have these ideas, and then it's a matter of us using them in an ethical way to help solve problems. So I like the way you put it, where it's the humanness of STEM, which is the beauty of it, because again, we are thinking about it differently. We are saying, wow, if I can, bridge these things together, if I can somehow come up with, wow, have we done it this way before? And like, let me try it, And is that again, getting your hands in the dirt again, building, creating, and that inspiration, I think, is going to really continue to propel us forward. Because we cannot say, well, we've thought of it all. That's it. You know, what kind of world will we have? But it does take again that connection that will make a difference. Because if we have that, we've all had that, I wonder if moments, right? Well, that's your signal. That's your signal to move in that direction because, that inspiration is there to help us, push the boundaries, push the envelope.
Well, that is a fantastic way to end. I am so glad that humans still have their place because
Yeah.
I wonder what would happen if we don't. What would we do with our time? But Valerie, it's been fantastic. I really enjoyed the conversation. I think it's fascinating, and I hope more people do get involved in STEM. For those that want to learn more about you, so it could be your chance to share social media, websites, that sort of thing. How can people connect with you?
Certainly, certainly. Thank you, Michael. You can reach me on all platforms with the STEM Doctor. You can also just, type in my name, Valerie, excuse me, type in my name, Valerie Bennett. My website, thestemdoctor.net, is also a great way to find other resources. There are great things there for parents to do with their kids. Great downloads that you can go to. So thestemdoctor.net, and follow me also on IG.
Thanks so much for being a guest on the show. Those that are listening, feel free to subscribe, share the show, tell others, and also leave a review wherever you are listening into your podcast. Val, I've really enjoyed it, and I look forward to keeping in touch. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Michael.